This week's clearest signal was not a flashy demo. It was a rule change that pushes AI deeper into everyday product design. The European Commission published guidance on transparency obligations under the AI Act. Those obligations start applying on 2nd August 2026. In plain English, the message is that if people interact with AI, if content is a deepfake, or if content is AI generated or altered in certain ways, the system has to disclose that fact or mark that content in a way users can understand. That sounds bureaucratic, but it is actually a practical shift. It means transparency is no longer just a policy document sitting in a drawer. It becomes part of the product itself. If you build or deploy AI tools, you may need to think about labels, notices, watermarking, and how the final output makes clear what was made by a machine and what was reviewed or created by a person. There are two words worth translating here. A provider is the company that makes or supplies the AI system. A deployer is the company or organization that uses it in the real world. That distinction matters because the obligation is not only about the model in the background, it is about how the system is used, what users see, and how the output is presented. What is confirmed in the Commission's guidance is the broad set of duties and the start date. What is not fully answered by this release alone is every edge case. For example, the guidance does not magically resolve every workflow in every sector. How a label should appear, how a deepfake should be handled in a particular product, or how a mixed human and AI workflow should be documented will still depend on the use case. Why does this matter now? Because AI has already moved out of the lab and into customer support, marketing, internal productivity, and media production. Once AI is part of those workflows, transparency stops being an abstract compliance question and starts becoming an operations question. Who adds the label? Where does it appear? Does it stay visible when the content is reposted or cropped? Is there a machine-readable mark behind the scenes? Those are product decisions, not just legal ones. If you are a creator, this could affect how you publish images, short clips, or promotional assets. If you run a small business, it could affect customer replies, ads, product visuals, and support messages. If you manage software that reaches European users, this is a reminder to put disclosure and review into the launch checklist before the feature ships, not after someone asks where the AI came from. Here is a simple example. Imagine a small business uses an AI tool to generate a product image for social media, then edits it a bit before posting. Under a transparency-first workflow, the team should have a rule for whether that image needs a label, who signs off on the final version, and whether the edit changed the original enough to require a different disclosure. The point is not to guess in the moment. The point is to make the process repeatable. You can test that approach this week without building a whole compliance program from scratch. Pick one workflow that already uses AI. Maybe a customer reply template, a blog draft, or a marketing visual. Add 2 checks, a disclosure check and a human review check. Then measure 3 things. How long does the full process take? How often does the label need to be rewritten? And does the review step catch errors or awkward claims before the content goes out? That kind of trial will tell you something useful. It will show whether AI is actually saving time or whether it is creating extra cleanup at the end. It will also show whether your current process is ready for a world where transparency is part of the output, not an afterthought. The main risks are fairly clear. One is assuming that good-looking output is automatically ready to publish. It is not. Another is inconsistent labeling, where one person tags content and another forgets. A third is waiting until the deadline, and then trying to retrofit disclosure into a workflow that was never designed for it. For human review, the checks are straightforward. Someone should confirm whether the content is AI generated, altered, or potentially deepfake material before it is labeled. Someone should approve the final disclosure text and placement, and someone should check that the label still makes sense if the content is shared, resized, or reused in another format. That is the kind of discipline that turns a rule into a working process. What should you watch next? First, whether consumer tools start surfacing AI labels more visibly in the interface. Second, whether watermarking or machine-readable marking becomes a more common feature in creator and marketing software. Third, whether the same transparency logic starts showing up across more business tools, not just the biggest platforms. And finally, whether users start expecting an AI label, the same way they expect a source name or an edit note. My verdict is test carefully. If you build or publish AI-generated content that can reach Europe, start checking your disclosure workflow now. If you do not, still watch this closely, because transparency rules have a way of spreading from regulation into normal business practice. This week's lesson is simple. AI is no longer only about what it can make. It's also about what it has to say about itself.